Just an hour ago, we concluded hearings on American policy toward East Asia with the newly confirmed Assistant Secretary for East Asia. And obviously what's happening in Hong Kong was a major focus of that. And obviously it's not America's military power, perhaps not even our economic power, that will come to the aid of the brave people of Hong Kong. But at a very minimum, we have to make it clear that America stands with Hong Kong, that we are looking to China to at least agree to follow the commitments it made for 50 years of autonomy. Now, we have legislation pending in Congress. I expect that it will be passed soon. There are three important bills. The first I'll mention is the Stand Up for Hong Kong resolution, which I introduced along with Ann Wagner of Missouri, Ted Yoho, who is the ranking member of the Asia Subcommittee, my partner, Jerry Conley, and others. This resolution expresses the House of Representatives' support for the protesters' 5 central demands and urges the Chinese and Hong Kong governments to do likewise. It denounces the Hong Kong police's excessive use of force and asks the Trump administration to ensure that U.S.-supplied police weapons are not used to repress peaceful protests. It condemns Hong Kong and Chinese governments' efforts to classify these protests, mostly peaceful, as riots and to portray them as originating in the United States. They do not originate in the United States. Frankly, America is focused on a lot of things. We didn't just wake up one day and say, oh, let's focus on Hong Kong. What is happening in Hong Kong was not originated in Washington. It was originated in Beijing when they decided to take a big bite out of Hong Kong's autonomy, to take a big and take a major action that would expose everyone in Hong Kong to the travesty that is sometimes found in mainland courts. So if anyone in Beijing wants to know who started this, I suggest they look in the mirror. My colleague Chris Smith has introduced and I've co-sponsored the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019. This bill has been introduced in the past. It has not been a focus of our committee in the past. It will be now. This legislation imposes sanctions on those individuals that abuse human rights in Hong Kong. It also ensures that Hong Kongers are not going to be denied visas to visit the United States just because they're arrested by Hong Kong police or given a Hong Kong criminal record. So we do at least control who we give a visa to. We should say no to the oppressors and yes to the oppressed. Yes to those who've had the courage, as several people I've met back in this hall that do not want their faces to be on any of these TV cameras. Yes to those who have shown that level of courage, even if they knew that that would lead to arrest, even if they knew that the Chinese government would take retribution. It also makes clear that we'll impose other costs on China if it continues to backtrack on its commitment to provide Hong Kong with sufficient autonomy. Keep in mind, if China cannot honor its commitment to Hong Kong, then they are not in a position to start talking to the United States about whatever commitments we made when we recognized Beijing rather than Taipei as the seat of the Chinese government. They rely on the Taiwan Relations Act. and certain limitations, and they have absolutely no right to rely on us on an issue regarding autonomy if they do not honor their commitments made to Britain, made to the world, and most importantly made to the people of Hong Kong about Hong Kong's autonomy. Finally, Jim McGovern has introduced a bill which I've also co-sponsored. Jim's bill would place restrictions on U.S. firms' ability to sell non-lethal police weapons to Hong Kong security forces. Democracy and human rights are, of course, fundamental principles of United States foreign policy, and they is certainly more important than profits. And of course, what already exists is the United States Hong Kong Policy Act of 1992, which states that support for democratization is a fundamental principle of U.S. foreign policy. As such, it applies naturally to Hong Kong, and of course, this remains true today. The Chinese government assured Hong Kong of autonomy. Whether anyone will trust their commitments is on the line. Beijing has a lot to lose. Whether anyone's commitments made to Beijing are going to be adhered to depends on whether China adheres to its commitments. So I fully understand why Beijing is doing this. They understand that they can't explain why it is that they are the people running China. Now, 50 years ago, they could claim that they should be running China because the Communist Chinese Party is the vanguard of the proletariat. Have you ever, at any time in this century, have you ever seen a Chinese official say with a straight face, vanguard of the proletariat? So if you're not the vanguard of the proletariat, and you do not hold power due to the divine right of kings, another theory used in Europe more than elsewhere, and you haven't been elected, then why do you hold power? Their response is because nothing else will work. Well, Hong Kong works. Hong Kong worked better without Beijing than with Beijing. Hong Kong demonstrates every day that the people of the region can govern themselves democratically and effectively and prosperously. So as long as Hong Kong continues to demonstrate that, the people in Beijing will not be able to answer the question, why are you guys, and they're all guys, running things? And that makes them a little nervous. So I look forward to Hong Kong continuing to be the bright, shining example of democracy that Americans love and that communists fear. Thank you.